Welcome to the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsay Dowd. My goal is to help train leaders and sales organizations how to manage and deliver results with empathy, compassion, and kindness. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. You know I bring you the best guests, and today is no exception. Erin Aldrich-Shean is recognized as one of the top dual sport professional athletes and Olympians of all time. A 2000 U.S. Olympian in track and field, and a 2001 through 2004 and 2007 U.S. National Volleyball Team member. Erin was a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin. She was named a Big XII Athlete of the Year in 2000 and finished her storied career at UT with 4 high jump national championships, a collegiate record of 6'5.5", and 8 first-team All-American honors in both volleyball and track and field. She also competed in 4 world championships for USA Track and Field. Erin was inducted into the UT Austin Hall of Honor for her athletic and academic accomplishments as a Longhorn. And today, Erin is a certified professional coach, the founder of Ascension Coaching, and vice president of the Aldrich Group. I had to cut this down. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you. So for those that don't know you, could you give a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so I'm primarily a professional athlete. When I was younger, about 10 years after college, I spent as a dual sport professional athlete as well after making the Olympic team in 2000. And then I suffered a pretty bad knee injury, an ACL, medial and lateral meniscus tear. And that prompted me to go back to business school. And so I went back to the McCombs School of Business at the University of Texas, got my MBA to kind of bridge that gap between undergraduate and the real world. And I went on into the professional world and spent a few years in sales, a few years managing sales teams, and then finally in commercial real estate prior to leaving a few months ago and starting my own coaching business.
Awesome. So I love having athletes on because it's always such a wonderful metaphor for leaders and for coaches. And I think athletes especially are by nature overachievers, but you have to have the right coach and the person that meets you where you are. So could you just highlight some of the coaching experiences you had, maybe what worked really well as an athlete? And then I want to transition a little bit later into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I had some pretty influential coaches in my career, starting in junior high and in high school. When I was in junior high, that's kind of where I found my love of sports and the 2 sports that I ended up following all the way to the Olympic level. So those coaches were extremely influential on me. And then I had a coach in high school who really kind of took me to that next level. She realized that there was a lot of potential there. And so she took me to the high development camps for USA Track and Field and really just took me under her wing. And she just learned a ton as far as coaching is concerned as well to get me there. So, and then I had my coach in college who we can chat about a little bit later.
We'll go there. We'll go there for sure. So what were some of the characteristics of your good coaches? What were the things that really made them good?
Extremely empowering, did not lead through fear, led through, you can do this, and very motivating and encouraging. And if things didn't go right, just, encouraged me to get back up and keep going at it. It was a very different mentality from what I experienced in college. Yeah. So, I tended to be very, very resilient as an athlete. And, I know that we're going to talk a lot about that. And
yes,
I think it did, they're great qualities to have. And so I was able to get through those college years and the post-collegiate years. But I obviously, some of my best years, I felt like were in high school. And, those coaches were incredibly supportive.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, leading from empathy and compassion and empowering. Those are all such important qualities of leadership. And I think my mission on earth is to change leadership as we know it. I think we've got such we've got a lot of improvement to do. So obviously, for those that don't know, you've had quite a troubling circumstance happen to you. And can you share a little bit about that? Because this is the example of what not to do, not for you, but the coach that you had.
Right. And I think that, when I share this experience, I'll also share that there were a couple others that
Right.
came along with me in this journey later on in life. It took me 20 years to come forward with my story of my coach in college, who I actually met when I was in high school with my high school coach because I was invited to those development camps, and he was the head of USA Track and Field Development for high school kids. So he coached all the top high school athletes once a summer when we were all brought together with our coaches, and that was where I met this particular coach. And so, it was a grooming process that started when I would imagine about 16 or 17. Um, and, that was where kind of the damage had been done because, he had made it clear that he was in love with me and all these things that probably shouldn't be said to a high school track athlete, particularly one who had never been in a relationship before. I was so into my sport and so into achieving excellence
Yeah,
as an athlete that, to feel like someone really loved me was huge
of
for me.
course.
And there's such an imbalance of power, right, between a high school kid and a college or a coach that's twice your age. But what I like to really drive home is, there are a lot of people that are like, why did it take you 20 years to come forward after this happens? And that's typically the common question. When you're that young, I mean, so first of all, your brain is not fully developed yet, and so you don't really know how to make solid decisions. Um, your prefrontal cortex is just a little bit far behind at that point. Of course, he was twice my age, and I really wanted to make an Olympic team, and I felt like he was one of my tickets to get there. And so there was just so much to lose by coming forward earlier than I did. And so I didn't. And looking back on it, I wish I would have, but I also don't know that I ever could have.
Yeah.
So I reached out to a few other girls that I knew from college that I felt like it could have happened to them as well. And sure enough, it did. And I found out that they had actually reported him back in college 20 years prior, but it had been pushed under the rug and told to move on, and they transferred schools. And yeah, it was just a very fearful relationship, I guess, and I didn't
Such
really
a,
realize that until later in
it's
life.
such a colossal abuse of power, and in the most damaging way. And for those people that don't know better, you never ask someone, why did it take you 20 years? You don't know the psychological and emotional damage that has been done. You have to give people the space, and you have to say that you believe them. No woman wants to share this. It's a really horrific circumstance to have to go through, especially intertwined with a sport you loved and a drive you had. You had a goal, and he knew that, and he was going to use that to his advantage. And I'm so sorry for what you went through, but I'm so grateful that you stepped up and you wanted to come forward and say no more, because he's still around kids, and this is so wrong on every level. So that takes incredible courage, and thank you, Erin, for that.
No,
Because
thank you. Thank you for recognizing, the difficulty of coming forward, when
yeah,
it's happening, which is why I think there needs to be a little bit of work on the statute of limitations,
yeah,
because we actually did end up filing a lawsuit against the NCAA for lack of protection against the athletes, and I think ultimately we lost off of the statute of limitations, even though we all know that my class action representatives did file a lawsuit, or did report him back 20 years ago, but we were just told to go the opposite direction. So I appreciate you for pointing that out. And yeah, it's a huge, it takes a long time for us to realize sometimes when we're ready. One of my mentors in the coaching business says it, perfectly when he says, until the pain inside is greater than the pain that you're experiencing on the outside, you can't
You
you
had to
can't
be
come
ready.
forward because it
Yeah.
has to tip the scale. And I felt like personally I was able to stuff it. But then when I realized and when it really hit home that he was coaching high school girls, that was when the pain um, came forward, and I realized that it was bigger than just me
Yeah.
and that I had to do something about it.
Well, and you had the power to make an impact.
Yeah.
And you did. And,
Yeah.
for that, I mean, thank you, because I'm a mom and I have a son who does track and I have a daughter, and I don't want any of them in a circumstance like that. And, for any leader listening that finds this appalling, thank you. But for any leader that is questioning, well, I'm the leader, so I have power. And yeah, you do, but did you earn it? And what are you doing to give back to your people to make them want to follow you? Because just because you have a title doesn't mean that you are a revered leader. It doesn't mean you deserve respect. You have to earn that. And it's such an important point. I think early in my career, my observation of leaders was, oh, they're untouchable, they're on high, they're going to be domineering and aggressive, and this is just their style, and this is just what I have to get used to. And that never inspired me. It was intimidating and off-putting and made me feel out of balance. And the leaders that saw me and said, I've got your back, I always did well. I always performed for them. And I think there's such a difference in that style. So
It's so different. I've had a couple bosses in my time since, going into the real world who have been very uplifting and incredible people and inspiring. And then I've had a few others who have not quite been that. And
yeah,
it's just an amazing difference that it makes in your daily life and your ability to like get up in the morning and want to go to work and feel appreciated,
yeah.
and I think we all need to feel appreciated and respected for
Well,
what we do.
and
We bring to the table.
you're a salesperson. That's my entire career has been in sales, and I think that is the first place where people forget the humanity, because you're focused on quotas and deadlines and the most important
Yeah.
deal of the most important week of the most important month of the most important quarter, on and on it goes. um, and I think that is the one place, and that's where I've spent my time focusing. It's the one place that needs the most improvement because it is so high pressure. And
Yeah.
so, when you think back to your sales days and, working for other leaders, what were some of the things that worked? How are leaders inspiring greatness, or what were the things they did wrong? You can pick.
Gosh, I think it takes a little bit of creativity to be good at sales, and particularly nowadays, I think getting in the door is just not as easy as it used to be.
Mhm.
Not that it was ever easy. It's always been hard, but with so much competition these days, it's just so challenging. So you have to kind of be, um, a little forgiving in the creativity that it requires to get in the door with your salespeople these days. And I always felt like, and this is why I actually got out of sales, because that's why I left the commercial real estate business about 6 months ago, is because I actually got to the point where I kind of despised it, because I was being forced into this box of like, you must dial for dollars like on a daily basis, and you must bring in these sales in, the first 3 months of being with the company. And that is not how I function.
Yeah.
I function more on a relationship basis. I truly care about the people that I work with, and I really refuse to sell them the wrong thing
Yeah.
or try to pressure them into anything. So I got to the point where I was like, this is just not where I want to be.
Yeah.
And I think it was a combination of the pandemic and coming forward with my coach from college and just all these life happenings where I thought, I just can't do this anymore. And I think my calling is more with people and helping people find their, what I say, find their Olympian within, awaken
Mm,
your Olympian within, because there is something special about being able to accomplish, you know, something to the level of going to the Olympics. And how do we do that,
yeah.
And it's not always fast. And I think that's the problem with sales, is that sometimes you're expected to get to the finish line too
Yeah.
fast, and it's not sticky that way. You
Yeah.
have to find the way that you can get there that, first of all, aligns with your values and your morals and how you operate as a person. And then, it has to be sticky.
The best salespeople are relationship people. The
Yeah.
best salespeople use something that I love to talk about from Samantha McKenna, show me you know me. And
Yeah.
when you spend time getting to know someone and you understand their goals, you are in a much better position to help them achieve them. You come from a place of service, and that is the best way to sell. So whenever you're put in that box to, you remove the humanity of the process, it's not going to serve you as well. And that is why sales get
Time.
such a bad rap.
The
Yeah,
the relationship approach takes time.
it
And
does.
I don't think a lot of people are willing to invest that time. A lot of leaders are not willing to invest that time. Particularly if you put yourself in their shoes, it's probably because they're under the gun as well. And,
Mhm.
so I try to look at it at both, in both ways, but I just got to where it was like too tiring to worry about
Yeah.
that. And I needed to worry about my own mental health and sanity and all that. And I love what I do now. So I definitely know that I made the right decision.
Good, good. So you are involved with the San Diego Women's Foundation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I actually moved to Dallas. And so I left the San Diego Women's Foundation a little while ago. But yeah, I was an organization that I absolutely loved because I got to meet other women that were in leadership positions. And we got to look over grants and give money to other organizations that were really in need. So my time with the San Diego Women's Foundation was one of my favorite times, for sure. It was just a lot of great relationships and a lot of positive philanthropic work.
I read a little bit about their mission, and it's so great to see women lifting each other up. But there's a variety of things that they do, and I thought that was extremely cool. There's a lot of amazing women's organizations out there. I just really liked what it stood for, and it seems pretty large too. So
It
um,
is. It has there are a lot of women in that organization, and it's very a lot of powerful women
mm,
in high positions. And so I absolutely loved it. And then, there is also a women's organization here in Dallas that I have strongly considered joining as well, because that's a huge part of my life, just giving back.
yeah,
So it's on my bucket list. It's on my list of things to do to get
good.
involved here in Dallas as well.
Nice. So you talk a little bit about when you became a mom, you lost a little bit of your motivation. And I think this is just such a great thing for anybody that's kind of struggling with like either writer's block, or they have to create some content, they don't know how, or they know they need to make a pivot and they're scared. So could you just share a little bit about your experience and what moved you to get back in?
Yeah, of course. This is one of my favorite topics because, as a coach, I specialize in getting people unstuck, because when you're stuck, you have stopped growing, right? And so the story that's very recent, really recent, that I love talking about is that for, 15 years, I had been telling my husband and my family and friends, I'm going to do a triathlon one day. And particularly the reason that I wanted to do that is because I didn't want to do the high jump or volleyball at a professional or master's level, because it would just remind me on a daily
Yeah, you needed
basis that
something different. Yeah.
right? And that's depressing, at least for me. So I wanted to do something that I had never done before, which was a triathlon. And so I thought, I just want to try to get through one. So for years, I told, my family and friends, I'm going to do a triathlon. And I would go out and buy little things that would supposedly motivate me to start training for this said triathlon. I'd buy shoes. At one point I came home with a wetsuit. My husband's like, "Oh, you're going to add another, piece to the garage." I realized because I had just lost motivation like I used to have as a professional athlete, an Olympian. And I was so frustrated because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get it back. And so when I left the commercial real estate world about 6 months ago, I came back to this, I'm going to do a triathlon. And I started really like digging deep inside of myself and going, why am I having trouble with this motivation? Like I'm coaching people now, I'm coaching them to get past their fears and move forward with these goals that they have, these lofty goals that they have. And now I'm realizing like I am literally afraid of a triathlon. I'm afraid, I'm petrified to do this triathlon. And it's evident to me that it was fear because I never bought the bike,
Mm.
you know? And I look back on that and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't buy the bike. Like, how did I not realize that? Because the bike to me represents commitment.
Yeah.
It represents
That's not
commitment
a
because
small purchase. So yeah, you're
it's not a small purchase. It's not purchasing a pair of shoes or a wetsuit. Like road bikes and triathlon bikes are like legit purchases.
expensive. Yeah.
So, it kind of dawned on me, like, if you're stuck in life and you have a fear about something, if you're not buying the bike, then you need to figure out how to get over that
Yeah.
hump because there's something that you are doing that is not committing to that goal. And for
Yeah.
me, it was buying the bike. So I bought the bike 6 months ago. And yeah, and I competed in my first triathlon last weekend.
Yay! Congratulations.
I know it sounds so dumb, but it's so
Oh no, no,
big.
no, no. It is not dumb. That is a
I
massive achievement. So good for you.
And not only did I compete, but I won my age division, and which I think qualifies me for nationals, maybe. So
Yeah.
I'm waiting on that like email from USA Triathlon to be like,
All
hey,
right. So when you have a minute, Erin, you have to listen to the episode with Siri Lindley because she's a world champion triathlete and her story is incredible. She had never done a triathlon before, watched one for the first time, said, I'm going to do that, didn't know how to swim, and in six
yeah,
years
me either.
became a world champion. So
Yeah,
if you want some inspiration, go listen to that. She's my
I
friend.
am
She's fantastic.
so going there because yeah, I was the same. I was like, I mean, I know how to like stay alive in a pool. I know how to like get from one end to the other, right? Like it's not like I didn't know how to swim at all, but like I didn't know how to swim. I never swam competitively. I did not know how to bike, didn't know how to cycle. In fact, I still haven't clipped in because I'm like kind of nervous about it
Oh,
because I've already
well, you got to talk to Siri and her wife back.
gotten into one accident already and had thumb surgery already. So in the
Oh,
past
Lord.
6 months, I had my thumb reconstructed because I got into a cycling accident.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, but I was like, I got to get back on the bike.
Yeah.
I got injured 2 months in, had to get complete
That is
reconstruction
surgeon.
of my thumb. Was on the bike as soon as possible with a brace on after surgery and a cast. And like, was like, I got to get on again
Yeah.
because I'm coaching people to get through these things. So I have to like live what I
Lead
preach.
by example. Yeah.
And, um, and yeah, and I have to be able to tell people that I did it. And if I can do it, like they can do it too.
Good. Well, congrats. And for sure, check out Siri and her wife back. And if you want an intro, I'm happy to make an intro, but she is a huge inspiration and it'll give you some wind in your
Love it.
yeah.
Yes.
So who are the kinds of people you coach now?
So I coach, gosh, I mean, I career coach a little bit. So, as you know, there's so many layoffs
Yeah.
right now, in the tech industry in particular.
Yep.
So I coach people through those transitions from, I just got laid off at Meta or
Mhm.
Microsoft or Google or Dell or whatever. Um, and that can be that can be a few different things. It can be, I really loved what I did. I need to figure out how to utilize my skills to get another job right now. Or, you know what? Like I was disappointed when I got laid off, but like I'm actually kind of relieved
Yeah,
and
it
I
was a
need to
gift.
figure out this next step in my life
Mm,
because that happens a lot. Like
I
it's
know.
I have a lot of clients right now who are somewhat relieved after they've taken some time to kind of take a breath. They're now kind of like, well, I'm a little bit relieved. And there's a book that I love. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. It's by Ryan Holiday. It's not one of those ones that you'll see at the store and be like, oh, it's on the bestsellers, so I'm going to pick it up. It is a New York Times bestseller, I think, but um, it's called The Obstacle is the Way, and it's about, whenever you hit a roadblock, it's actually an opportunity. It's an
Yep.
opportunity to get where you really want to go, because we don't take time to reflect when things are going smoothly, right? It's
Yeah.
there's no growth in that. The growth comes when we feel like, we've failed at something or we've lost or whatever. That's the time that we really take to reflect. And so I love that book. I love The Obstacles the Way. So I coach clients on transitions in careers,
Mhm.
and I coach people on getting unstuck, whether that is I'm sitting on my couch a little bit too much every day. I need to figure out what my hobbies are and increase my habits. I want to do a triathlon. Like how do I get unstuck?
Mhm.
And it's kind of a broad thing, but I just love it because I love goal setting and process and high performance.
Yeah,
So
I love that. And what you described with people being laid off, is this kind of epiphany that they're going through saying, I actually want to live intentionally. I want to do
yeah,
something that is aligned with my purpose. And I think, especially in tech, there's a bit of an awakening happening. And um, I think they're kind of saying, I don't think work is meant to be this awful. And I actually want to do something I really enjoy. And I've watched so many of my friends, leave these, SVP jobs at very large tech companies. And they're like, I'm done. I'm going to figure out something else because that is not a life I want for myself anymore. And I got fired after, a 25-year long career in tech. And at the time, it was so shameful. It was so painful. I didn't want to talk about it, but it became the fuel for my fire. It became the inspiration for my building my company, starting my podcast, and doing everything I'm doing now. So it's a total gift. And look at it that way because it gives you this opportunity to make a pivot, which is
yeah,
awesome.
it's a total gift. The
Yeah.
obstacle is the way. It's the
Yeah. I
way,
love that.
and and I love that because if things in our life didn't happen, we wouldn't be introduced to the things that we're probably actually supposed to be doing.
So right.
So it is very much a gift, and I love working with people to find that too
Yeah.
because I mean I know it just as well as anybody else because I've been through it. I've been through that. Like, why am I selling commercial real estate or leasing commercial real estate? Like, how is that really contributing to my purpose?
Mhm.
And finally getting the guts to be like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go follow what I actually probably should be doing.
Good for you. Well, congrats on making that pivot. It's hard. I speak from
Yeah,
experience.
it is hard.
It's
It's
but
fulfilling.
when you feel like you're doing the right thing, it feels good.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so what inspires you?
I think obviously, if you would have asked me 25 years ago, it would probably have something to do with sports. I think when I'm thinking of like current day inspiration, what inspires me are people that recognize that there's more to their life than what they're experiencing and that have the courage to take that leap.
Mhm.
That's really inspirational to me. I love seeing people take that leap because it means that they're investing in themselves and their happiness and they're taking that step towards living a life of purpose and fulfillment instead of what they think other people want them to do.
I
That's
love that. That's awesome. Okay, and what would you like your legacy to be?
that's a good question because right before or earlier this morning I was shooting this quick video that I was going to throw on social media because it was something that I had heard from Warren Buffett. I don't know if you've heard this too. Did you read an article where he said that we need to sit down and write our obituary? Because first of all, tomorrow is never guaranteed.
That's
We
right.
know that. But secondly, how would you write your own obituary? And if you were to pass today and someone had to write, from your family or friends, had to write your obituary, would it align with what you want it to be?
Oh, so good.
So if we write our own obituary, we can sometimes avoid the mistakes that are, that we can control not making, right, in the future, and create the life that we should be living based on our obituary. Because, in your obituary, it's not going to say died with multi-million dollars.
Worked really hard.
Worked really hard to buy the Gucci sweatsuit or shoes or, the Versace, whatever, the Rolex watch. That's not what our obituary says. So, really think about your values and what you want for your life.
Yeah.
And the exercise of writing your obituary, I think, is a really good one.
I love that. And for anybody that's had a near-death experience, you kind of get to experience that. So I've certainly had that, and it's wild. All the people come forward and tell you how much you meant to them and you had no idea.
Oh my gosh, I want to hear more about that.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But I actually did an exercise. I was in a workshop and they said, write a letter to yourself 1 year from now and congratulate yourself on all the things you accomplished in that year. And I was like, this is so cool, because you're giving yourself like very clear goals, but you're doing it in a way that, a year from now, I'm going to look back and I'm going to go, hot diggity, I did all those things. So
did you write a letter to yourself, thanking yourself for making a wonderful podcast? And
I'm working on it. But yeah, no, that's part of it. And I think it's such a good exercise to, think about what you're giving back to the world. What are you putting out there? How are you making a difference? How are you living with heart? It's so important.
Yeah. Where is that gap between where you are today and where what your obituary says, or what, your life says at the end? Like, what's the gap and how do you fill it?
Well, and I think it draws attention to, if you want to be remembered for something, are you doing that? Like, are you serving that up? Because a lot of different. So that's so Erin, how do people find you?
Yeah, so my website is, or my company is, Ascension Coaching and Consulting. You can find it by going to www.ascensioncoaching.co, not .com, but
Okay,
.co.
we'll put it up. All good. It will flash.
Yeah. And I do post on social media. I don't really use social media for any other purpose than to just get my thoughts out there, because I just want to like memorialize some stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just, my website, if you ever want to reach out and get unstuck, then you can contact me on my contact page and I will get right back to you.
Erin, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for being such a great guest. And guys, I hope you stay tuned for more Heartbeat for Hire. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lyndsay.
Pleasure. Thanks for listening to Heartbeat for Hire. If you like what you hear, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. To keep the conversation going, you can find me on Insta or at LinkedIn at Lyndsay Dowd, H4H, or you can reach me at my website, heartbeatforhire.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.